Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is politics reporter Sarah Dorn. Sarah, thanks for coming on.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we are about to talk about the biggest story so far in the political world right now, and that is Donald Trump and a potential indictment. First of all, why is the former president potentially going to be indicted?
So, this case is connected to payments that were made to adult film star Stormy Daniels in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election. His former personal lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, paid Daniels $130,000. And I say this definitively because Cohen pleaded guilty to a federal case related to this deal in 2018. He paid her this $130,000 in exchange for her silence about this alleged affair that she claims to have had with Trump in 2016 when he had been married to Melania Trump for about a year, and she had just given birth to their first son during this time. So the reason that Trump is under investigation is because federal prosecutors determined in 2018, as they were prosecuting Cohen, that the payments essentially constituted a violation of campaign finance laws because they were made with the intent to sway the results of the 2016 presidential election. And what's more is the payments Cohen was reimbursed for this $130,000, which he made out of a home equity line of credit to Daniels through the Trump Organization. The Trump Organization reimbursed him under a contract that falsely specified, according to federal prosecutors, again, that these payments were made for legal fees. So really what the Manhattan DA is probing is, what did Trump know about the payments, and how did he have a role in potentially orchestrating this false contract? And the charge that he is most likely to face would be falsifying business records, which is a misdemeanor. And in order to elevate that to a felony, prosecutors need to prove that he also intended to commit another crime or did commit another crime. And that second crime is likely to be a violation of campaign finance laws.
Sarah, Trump wrote on Truth Social over the weekend that he was going to be arrested on Tuesday. Right now, as we sit, it is Tuesday evening and there has not been news of an arrest. When can we expect the potential indictment and arrest?
So the grand jury that is examining the evidence against Trump that prosecutors have collected, over the past 3+ years in their investigation meets on Mondays and Wednesdays only. Tomorrow, they are reportedly interviewing a final witness in the case, and they could choose to vote on an indictment tomorrow. But even if they do vote on the indictment tomorrow, first of all, this might not be publicized. It's likely to be leaked in the media, but the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, because the case is under seal, would not publicize this. And what's more is his arrest would likely come, days or even weeks later, and he would most likely surrender himself to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office rather than be, extradited from Florida or taken in handcuffs and, as we call it in the media, perp walked into the courthouse. That's unlikely to happen. He's most likely to voluntarily submit himself to an arrest. He will be fingerprinted. He will have his mugshot taken, which also, just in accordance with law enforcement practices in New York, mugshots are not routinely publicized, so that would also have to be leaked to the media. So, the arrest could come as soon as tomorrow, but it's more likely to happen in a matter of days or weeks following the indictment.
Sarah, give us a temperature check here. How bad is this? You said the potential charge is a misdemeanor, could be elevated to a felony. Does he face potential jail time here?
He does face potential jail time. I believe it's up to a year in jail for the misdemeanor charge. And if it is elevated to a felony, then the maximum sentence is 4 years in jail. What's really interesting is this case is unlikely to go to trial, just given the historical precedent of the Manhattan Criminal Court and how long it typically takes them to bring cases to trial. So it's unlikely to be any less than a year. And, that could be after he secures the GOP nomination or even after he is reelected president, which, we're already potentially going to see something unprecedented here with the indictment of a former president and sitting president facing a criminal trial would just be even more wild and unprecedented.
We're talking about something historic. We're talking about something really completely unprecedented. So to even bring this on, do prosecutors think they have a slam dunk here? What are the challenges they're facing?
So according to legal experts, many of whom have opined in media reports about this case and the legal footing that it stands on, falsification of business records, which is the main charge that prosecutors are investigating, is a misdemeanor. And in order to elevate this to a felony level, as I mentioned earlier, prosecutors would have to tie it to a second crime or the intent to commit a second crime. What adds in another tricky layer there is this second crime is likely to be a violation of campaign finance laws. However, this is a state court, and in Cohen's case, he was convicted of federal campaign finance violations. Obviously, this is a federal election. So there are really two layers to this case that complicate things. And I would say the third thing is that prosecutors have to clearly prove that Trump knew about these illegal payments, that he helped arrange them, that he had a role in drafting this, what federal prosecutors say is a false contract, and that Cohen was not just, operating on Trump's behalf without his knowledge, as I'm sure he often did in the many years that was his main job responsibility is, to help Trump. So yes, it's a lot of, as I mentioned, tricky legal layers to this, and Trump's allies and attorneys are certainly mentioning that in their defense of him. And another thing, the statute of limitations are typically 5 years for a crime like this in New York, and it's been 7 years since the payments were allegedly made. Though there are some legal loopholes that prosecutors can work around to extend the statute or get around the statute of limitations.
Sarah, certainly this isn't the only probe that Donald Trump is facing. He's still facing other investigations by different law enforcement agencies. Is this the most serious legal trouble facing Trump currently?
Yes, I would say that there are, three main law enforcement agencies that are currently investigating him. One is the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney's Office. They are probing his role in seeking to overturn election results in the state after the 2020 election when Joe Biden won Georgia. He has that infamous phone call that he made to Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, asking him to find votes, as I'm sure many viewers have heard. And then the other probe, the Department of Justice has two ongoing matters that they're looking at. One is his role in the insurrection, and then the other one is his mishandling of classified documents that he took to Mar-a-Lago after leaving office. And then the fourth investigation that we know of is New York Attorney General Letitia James's office is has sued the Trump organization. This is an ongoing civil case alleging that him and his children inflated value of Trump organization assets in, a scheme to get more favorable business loans. And I would say, we don't know yet because, again, unprecedented territory here. A former president and candidate for the presidency in the next election being indicted or facing criminal charges is something that's never happened before. But I have seen some opinions out there from legal experts that inciting an insurrection and mishandling of documents, destroying of documents after leaving office, that those are the two things that could potentially bar him from holding federal office again.
Whenever there's an investigation surrounding Trump, it really seems to embolden his base. And this one's no exception with the potential indictment incoming. We've seen protests around the country. So what measures are law enforcement taking ahead of the potential indictment?
So the protests have been relatively muted, I think, relative to expectations. And of course, the January 6th insurrection, and protesters said yesterday as they were gathered outside of Manhattan Criminal Court, this was a protest organized by the New York Young Republicans Club, that there were some fears, some chatter in conservative circles on social media that they were a target for law enforcement, and they feared a repeat of the January 6th arrest. And that's why people were not, coming out in droves, as Trump seemed to have called for. But nonetheless, there is a lot of law enforcement prep underway. I read today, CBS, their local affiliate here in New York City, reported that the NYPD is planning to deploy SWAT teams, helicopters, armored vehicles. We've already seen them setting up barricades near the Manhattan Criminal Court in downtown Manhattan and Trump Tower in preparation for a possible indictment. And they're also, just really monitoring social media for any possible threats in the lead up to this.
I do want to talk about the 2024 implications here. Obviously, as you and I have talked about many times, Trump is the lead GOP contender in the 2024 presidential race, and now he's facing a potential indictment. But like we just said, this type of investigation always seems to embolden his base and kind of energize his campaign. Do you think an indictment could actually bolster his 2024 campaign?
That's hard to say because Trump has a base of supporters, but that base cannot get him elected on their own. He needs more moderate Republicans to come out and vote for him and choose him over a Ron DeSantis or another Republican candidate. As of now, it's tricky, I think, for the other GOP candidates, potential candidates in next year's presidential election, like Ron DeSantis, for example. They do want to criticize Alvin Bragg, who is a Democrat, and just the Democrats in general, and say this was a politically motivated investigation. But at the same time, DeSantis does not obviously want to be out there defending Donald Trump. So he has said that, he insinuated that the payments themselves were wrong, but so was the investigation. So, we are really seeing the GOP once again, rally behind Trump. And I think it says a lot about how, they may not be beholden to him, but they do know how important his base of supporters are and how important he really still is to the identity of the Republican Party. Kevin McCarthy has come out in defense of him. As I mentioned, Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, who is another potential 2024 contender. So if anything, I would say that this is empowering Trump, or just letting him know that the GOP is still behind him in a way. But of course, Democrats, I mean, this would be a prominent attack for any Democratic candidate, and also likely as much as Republicans, even those who are contesting him, would say that this was a politically motivated investigation, and they are. If he is charged, I'm sure that will be brought up by his primary opponents as well. So
You did mention Ron DeSantis, and I do want to talk about him because he's in an interesting position here. He's number 2 to Trump in a lot of polls for the 2024 GOP presidential candidate. And if Trump is extradited from Mar-a-Lago, the extradition would have to be approved by either a judge or Florida Governor Ron DeSantis himself. So what position does this put DeSantis in?
he said within the past couple of days that he was not going to get personally involved, and really the governor's approval for an extradition would just be a formality. So I would not expect him to fight that. And as I mentioned, he did say that the payments themselves were wrong, but in the next breath, he also said that the investigation itself is politically motivated and should not be happening.
Republicans all around have been saying that this is politically motivated. But now what about the Biden administration? What has their response been?
Top Democrats on the Oversight Committee, Jamie Raskin, he's the ranking member, for example. He really hit back hard against House Republicans who yesterday sent a letter asking for Manhattan District Attorney to sit for a transcribed interview before the committee about his investigation. Raskin and other Democrats in Congress said that while Republicans have said that Bragg is weaponizing his office, Democrats are now saying that House Republicans are weaponizing their congressional duties to become involved in this criminal justice matter here in New York.
And Sarah, what's next? Is this just a waiting game, or is there anything to look forward to?
As I mentioned, the Manhattan grand jury Wednesday, and they could vote on an indictment as soon as tomorrow. And that could be, even though the case is under seal, that could be leaked to the media. So I'm expecting some excitement tomorrow, and then indicted in the coming days and weeks, whenever he is arrested and arraigned in criminal court. And when he is arraigned, that would be when the case is made public and the charges are formally made public against him by the district attorney's office.
Well, whenever there's movement on this, I hope you come back and break it all down for us. Sarah Dorn, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brittany.